Hey folks, I'm Steve Butler. What do blues legends Lightning Hopkins, Albert King, and Muddy Waters all have in common? Well, they got their start by building their own humble cigar box guitar. Today we're going to build one. Come join me as we make some homemade music right here in the garage. All right, let's have a look at today's project. We're building a fretless cigar box guitar, and it's fretless because it's meant to be played with a slide. We have a cigar box, which creates our soundboard or the body of the guitar, and we're going to use a piece of 1x2 poplar for our neck and our headstock. And you can build this with minimal hand and power tools. Well, it's not a Stradivarius or a high-end Martin guitar, but nothing beats making music on an instrument you crafted with your own hands. First thing we need to do is cut our neck stock down to size. Let's get started. Yeah, this is such a fun project to build. Whether you're a seasoned veteran at woodworking or just starting out, there's nothing better than hearing that first note ring out from an instrument you crafted with your own hands. All right, we want 1.5 inch wide by 3/4 inch thick piece of wood for our neck. Now I'm using poplar. You can use whatever hardwood you want. I bought this right off the shelf. And if you want to, take a 1x2 piece of pine and practice your cuts on it first. First thing we're going to do is cut this piece to length to 34 inches. Yeah, I use poplar for the neck just because of the accessibility of it. You can buy it at any big box store right off the shelf, but you could use hardwood such as cherry and walnut, whatever you like. Okay, the next thing we need to do is rip that 34-inch piece down to 1.5 inches. All right, I've set our fence at 1.5 inches away from our blade, and that's the width we want for our neck and our headstock. Now that is too narrow to use without a push stick. The golden rule, anything narrower than your fist, you must use a push stick. Now, I've raised the blade to about 1/4 inch above our workpiece. If you're in doubt, the thickness of a pencil. Okay, I'm wearing eye protection and hearing protection. I'm doing a lot of talking, so I'm not wearing a mask, but I'm going to put the dust collection on. Okay, let's get started. The guitar we built was what's called a 25-inch scale length. And what the scale length determines is if we were to make a fretted guitar, it determines the spacing and the location of those frets. Okay, I removed the guard and the cover. I'm going to take out my combination blade and I'm going to put in what's called a set of stacked dado blades. Now basically what it is, it's like a cookie. You have 2 blades on the outside and inside are these cutters so that you can take a wider cut and they nestle into each other. And I'm going to do that because all our joinery is basically going to be cut using those dado blades. I have 2 cutters in the middle, and you don't want the teeth. These are carbide teeth, very brittle, can break easily. You don't want them hitting each other, so you want the blades, they just nestle in to each other, what's called inside the gullet of the blade. All right, we're all set. Just going to go ahead and do a test piece first. Yeah, this is a great project that you can build with your kids. It can be done with minimal hand tools. I used a table saw and a set of dado blades, but you can easily scale it down and use a hand saw, coping saw, and just a few other tools. All right, I set our fence at 4.5 inches to the outside of the dado blade, and that's the measurement we want for our headstock. And basically what we're going to do is cut a notch 4.5 inches long, and our dado blades are at 1/2 inch thick, so we're going to make multiple passes till we clear out 4.5 inches of material. And the headstock is where our tuners for a cigar box guitar are located. All right, I have a piece of scrap wood. You always want to do a test cut first to see the depth of cut you're taking. Now, use a combination square if you have one. I set it at 1/4 inch. It's perfect to check the depth. That looks great. Just gonna get our neck stock, and we'll go ahead and make multiple passes. Now, what I'm gonna do, I butt this up to the fence. That's our 4.5 distance. I'm gonna make that further most cut first, and then I'm just gonna slide our piece along, make multiple cuts until we're finished. There we go. Starting to look like a guitar neck. All right, before we do any more work on our neck, what we have to do is cut our notches out in the cigar box to accommodate our neck stock. Now, I'm using a set of stacked dado blades to cut that notch, but that's because this box is secure. If your box is a little flimsy, you might want to cut some corner pieces and glue them in the corners, and it'll help sturdy the box. So what I've done, you can see, I've measured 1.5 inches by 3/4 deep, and that is the dimension of our neck stock. I'm just going to slide this along, make our first outside cut, and then just move the fence over until we have our neck width cut. You always want to use a backup board when cutting the dados, and the reason for that is we have all this nice decal work on our cigar box, and when the blade comes out the other side, it could tear that. So by putting a piece of scrap stock behind it as a backup board, we'll get less tear out. So again, you want some eye protection, ear protection. I'm doing a lot of talking, so I'm not wearing a mask. Put the dust collection on if you have it. Okay, let's get started. Okay, I just have to raise the blade a little bit to take a little more material off. Make that pass again, and we'll just continue. Make multiple passes until we have our notch cut. All right, that looks great. We have a little bit of tear out of the paper decal on the inside, but that's going to be hidden. On the outside, we have a nice, clean, crisp cut. That's why we use that backup board. It really makes a difference. Okay, let's get our neck piece, test this out. That's great. Look at that. We have a guitar starting to take shape. All right, the next thing we need to do is to cut a notch in our neck to accommodate the lid. Now this lid happens to be 1/4 of an inch, so obviously I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch notch. The lid on your cigar box that you use could be a little thinner, a little thicker, so make sure you take a measure. Also, for the length of our neck, the 34-inch neck, with this cigar box, I want it to project out at the end 2 1/8 inches. Again, depending on the size of the cigar box you're using, yours could be more or it could be less. So I'm just going to take a pencil, and where the lid crosses, I'm just going to mark that, and then I'm going to extend these lines down with my square. Actually, this looks pretty good. Just going to take this out of the box, extend those lines down, and we'll cut that notch. The reason I want to extend the lines down is so I can see where I'm cutting. If I put it face down, these lines will be hidden. Now I'm just going to turn this over, bring it to our outside point that we want, and make our cut. I've raised the blades to take off 1/4 of an inch. Now another thing I'm going to do is then I'm going to go and make a cut at our other end, take a pass. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to raise the blade slightly and make a deeper cut for the middle of that notch. And what that does, it creates a step for the cigar box lid to sit on with a little bit of gap in between, and that really helps with the acoustics of the final product. Okay. Let me set this up and we'll get started. I've raised the blade. Now I'm just going to make multiple passes until we have that whole thing cut out. That looks great. Let's test this. Moment of truth. Make sure our edges are flush to the sides. Oh, look at that. There we go. Important thing to remember, you can see the graphics. I'm a right-handed player. The graphics are here. You could turn this around, the neck around, to accommodate a left-hand one. You just want to check that before you go and cut the neck. There we go. Okay, the next thing we need to do is drill our tuner peg holes. Okay, I've put a 5/16 inch drill bit into my drill press, and that's so we can drill the tuner peg holes and accommodate the bushings they come with. Now, it doesn't matter what side your 3 tuner pegs are on what side on your neck, but what is important is what direction the gears are. And we want the gears to be pointed to the body of the guitar. And the reason for that, if it was on the other side, it's just greater wear and tear on the tuner parts, on the gears themselves. So, just going to go ahead and drill those holes. Now, what I did is I measured 3/8 inch up from either side of our neck. And I just made equal placement for these two, which happens to be 1/4 inch. And for the top one, I just measured in the center. Placement isn't so important. What is important is when you turn the pegs, you don't want them bump into each other. Okay, let's get started. I have a backup board. Last thing you want is to drill into the bed of your drill press. You can clamp this down if you feel more comfortable. Just want to hold it in place so it doesn't spin on you once the drill goes through. There we go. We're all set. The other thing we're going to do next is we're going to drill our sound holes. And I just use these grommets, they're tarp grommets, and I just glued them in. It helps clean it up in case you have any wear and tear or some tear out in the paper decal. It's just a nice way of cleaning it up. All right. All right, that looks great. We have all our parts cut, our sound holes drilled. Let's go to the bench and assemble our guitar. Yeah, these are so fun to play, and yet they hold their own as instruments. You can get a lot of sound out of them. A lot of great musicians use one. I mentioned earlier the blues musicians, Chet Atkins, Jeff Beck, they all made their own cigar box guitar and played them in concert. All right, before we install our tuner pegs, we need to cut or file a slight divot in our neck. And what that does is it cradles our bridge. Now we're just using a piece of threaded rod for our bridge. And what I like to do is I'll just draw a line about 1/4 inch away from the end from our headstock. Then I'll use a utility knife, slice through, and then I'll just move it over on either side. Just draw the knife across that. Now clamp this down. We don't want this moving on us. Move this down a bit more. Now I'm just taking a round, or what's called a rat tail file. I'm just going to draw this across our neck where I drew that line and made those cuts. There we go. And that'll just cradle that. And if I need to, I can come back and do it again. All right, so now let's take our clamps off. We're ready to install the tuner pegs. Again, you want the gears, these gears, pointing towards the body of the guitar. So if I had this one placed in there, you can see that's how it would be. It's going to be towards the body of the guitar. So I'm just going to go ahead, mark these out, pencil line, and then come back, drill a starter hole for 1/16 of an inch bit, and we'll mount these tuners. If you need to, you can use an awl, just tap an awl in there. Makes a little starter divot so your drill bit doesn't wander. But I think we're in good shape here. We're not going to go too far. Careful you don't blow all the way through. Our headstock's only about 1/2 inch thick. You don't want to strip those screws. I'm going to raise this up so that I can easily install these. These little screws can be awkward to hold on to. If you need to, use a pair of tweezers or needle nose pliers just to hold them in place to help get you started. Okay, that looks great. Just going to turn it over, put our bushings in. I forgot to mention, before you put the tuners on, it's a good time you want to sand it. If you want to apply a finish on there, that's when you could have done it. We're just leaving this natural. Okay, that looks great. Now we're just going to go and add our bushings. There we go, that looks great. Now we're just going to install our grommets into our sound holes. Just going to use a little bit of super glue. Now these fit snugly, but just in case, I'm just going to add a little bit of super glue to the inside edge of that, and then just place these on there. That looks great. All right, that looks great. We're ready to attach the neck to the box, but before we do that, we're going to amplify ours. I have a little piezo pickup. I just need to drill a hole for the jack. Definitely want to use a little block at the back just so it doesn't blow out. So I take my time. I don't want to tear off any of these graphics. Okay, that looks great. Just going to put our jack in here. And it comes with this washer and a nut. We want to make sure we have enough room to put that on. And we'll just tighten it loosely at first, not all the way, until we attach our pickup. Now, let's go take a little bit of silicone caulking. And you just want to put it on the end. You don't need much of our pickup. And I'm going to attach that right in this corner of the box. I'll just hold it in place with a little spring clamp. We'll let that dry for about 15 minutes. Okay, there we go. Our pickup has cured in place. It's going to shut this. Now, you do not want to fasten the box to the neck with any screws or nails or anything, because that'll dampen the sound, the acoustics of it. So what we do, they're also decorative. We add these nice corner blocks. Put it on there. You can see how that'll work, and that connects the lid to the box. So I'm just going to go ahead and attach them. All right, the corner hardware looks great. Also, it allows us to have access inside in case something goes wrong. Say we have to replace the pickup, simply unscrew the hardware, open up the box, and we can fix it. Now, there's many ways to attach strings to the guitar. We can drill 3 small holes in our tailpiece and put them through there. Or you can do what I do. I buy these decorative hinges at my local hardware store, and I drill 3 small holes in there, attach it to the underside of the guitar, and then I can put my strings through there. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and attach this one. You can see how that works. There we go. This is great. Let me show you what I did. I added a little piece of wood just on the headstock, and I drilled 3 small holes in there. And this helps me keep the strings aligned. When it goes over the nut and then I'm attaching them to the tuner pegs, they won't move off the nut, they'll stay in alignment. I think we're ready to go string this up. Yeah, the Cigar Box Guitar, as we know it, really didn't hit popularity till the early 1900s. Before that, it was the violin, cigar box violin. There's photos from the Civil War of soldiers playing a cigar box violin. Then the banjo and a cigar box ukulele. The guitar came much later. All right, I attached our hinge as our tailpiece, added our strings. We have a simple bolt as our bridge, a bolt as our nut, a piece of poplar for the neck, and a humble cigar box, and we made a guitar. All right, moment of truth. All right. As usual, I had a blast building this project with you. I hope you come back and join us here in the garage. But I'm but hi and the okay.